Hello, friends and family at Grace Lutheran PSL. This is our Good Friday service. But this service is going to be a little different than our normal because the times that we are in are different than normal. There's a practice of the church called the Stations of the Cross, where you go to different stations and you pray and meditate on different parts of the crucifixion and the passion story of Jesus. But this year we faced a lot of loss, and we may face more. And I thought that was a fitting way of celebrating Good Friday. So we are going to do the Stations of Loss. From Psalm 55. Hear me, O God, tune your ears to my plea, and do not turn your face from my prayer. Give me your attention, answer these sighs of sorrow. My troubles have made me restless. I groan from anxiety, all because of my enemy, because his voice speaks against me. His wickedness torments me. He casts down misfortunes upon me. His anger flares. His grudges grow against me. My heart seizes in my chest. I am in anguish. I am terrified of life that could end my breath. I shiver and shudder in fear. I cannot stop because this horror is just too much. I said if my arms were wings like a dove, I could fly away from here and find rest. Yes, I would venture far and weave a nest in the wilderness. I would rush to take refuge, away from the violent storm and those pounding winds.
Now it came to pass, when Jesus had finished all these sayings, that he said to his disciples,
You know that after 2 days is the Passover, and the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified.
Then the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders of the people assembled at the palace of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas, and plotted to take Jesus by trickery and kill him.
Not during the feast, lest there be an uproar among the people.
And when Jesus was in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him having an alabaster flask of very costly fragrant oil, and she poured it on his head as he sat at the table. But when his disciples saw it, they were indignant.
Why this waste? For this fragrant oil might have been sold for much and given to the poor.
But when Jesus was aware of it, he said to them,
Why do you trouble the woman? For she has done a good work for me. For you have the poor with you always, but me you do not have always. For in pouring this fragrant oil on my body, she did it for my burial. Assuredly I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be told as a memorial to her.
Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests.
What are you willing to give me if I deliver him to you?
And they counted out to him 30 pieces of silver. So from that time he sought opportunity to betray him. Now on the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus.
Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover?
Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, The teacher says, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.
So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover. When evening had come, he sat down with the 12. Now, as they were eating, he said,
Assuredly, I say to you, one of you will betray me.
And they were exceedingly sorrowful. And each of them began to say to him,
Lord, is it I?
Lord, is it I?
He who dipped his hand with me in the dish will betray me. The Son of Man indeed goes just as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born.
Then Judas, who was betraying him, answered,
Rabbi, is it I?
You have said it.
Part 1 is the loss of the get-together. I'm outside of Duffy's in Superplay USA. This is 6:30 in the evening. Think about a normal day and how full this parking lot would be. I could come here. I came actually to this parking lot because it was quiet. Because there was nobody here. It's off the main road. It's unbelievable. And I've had many good meals here. I've had a lot of laughs here. I've had a lot of good times, and we can't do that right now because it's closed. And it's a loss because it's taken from us. In our first reading tonight, we saw the beginning of the Last Supper, and there's a couple things that come to light during that Last Supper. First, we find out who the betrayer is, Judas. But we also find out Peter and how he will do anything in this world not to deny Jesus. But we know where that goes, don't we? But what's interesting, I think, is that supper with Jesus and his disciples and where all that happens, we call it the Last Supper. I'm sure the disciples didn't think it was the Last Supper. I imagine they thought there was many more to come, even better, bigger and better than those. Just like us just a few weeks ago. Not knowing that we'd be sitting in our homes watching this. But there they are. And I think it's interesting we call it the Last Supper, which almost sounds like it's the Lost Supper, where the disciples lose their Savior. And this year we've lost the get-together. From dancing to eating to being able just to hug each other. We've lost so much already. And we sit in that this year as we face loss together. Psalm 31. You are my shelter, O God, my soul's sanctuary. Shield me from shame, rescue me by your righteousness. Hear me, Lord, turn your ear in my direction. Come quickly, save me. Be my rock, my shelter, my fortress of salvation. You are my rock and my fortress, my soul's sanctuary. Therefore, for the sake of your reputation, be my leader, my guide, my navigator, my commander. Save me from the snare that has been secretly set out for me. For you are my protection. I entrust my spirit into your hands. You have redeemed me, O Eternal, God of faithfulness and truth. Show me your grace, Eternal One, for I am in a tight spot. My eyes are aching with grief. My body and soul are withering with miseries. My life is devoured by sorrow, and my years are haunted with mourning. My sin has sapped me of all my strength. My body withers under the weight of this suffering. Bless, oh bless me, God. For he has revealed his gracious love to me when I was trapped like a city under siege. I began to panic and I yelled out, I am cut off, you can no longer see me. But you heard my cry for help that day when I called out to you. Love the Eternal, all of you, his faithful people. He protects those who are true to him, but he pays back the proud and kind. Be strong and live courageously, all of you who set your hope with the Eternal.
And as they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to the disciples.
Take, eat. This is my body.
Then he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them.
Drink from it, all of you. For this is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say to you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on, until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom.
And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives.
All of you will be made to stumble because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go before you to Galilee.
Peter answered,
Even if all are made to stumble because of you, I will never be made to stumble.
Assuredly, I say to you that this night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times.
Even if I have to die with you, I will not deny you.
and so said all the disciples. Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane.
Sit here while I go and pray over there.
And he took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, and he began to be sorrowful and deeply distressed.
My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me.
He went a little farther and fell on his face.
Oh, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will.
Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping, and said to Peter,
What? Could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Again, a second time, he went away and prayed,
Oh, my Father, if this cup cannot pass away from me unless I drink it, your will be done.
And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. So he left them, went away again, and prayed the 3rd time, saying the same words. Then he came to his disciples and said to them,
Are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand.
And while he was still speaking, behold, Judas, one of the 12, with a great multitude with swords and clubs, came from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now his betrayer had given them a sign.
Whomever I kiss, he is the one. Seize him.
Immediately he went up to Jesus
Greetings, Rabbi.
and kissed him.
Friend, why have you come?
Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and took him. And suddenly, one of those who were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword, struck the servant of the high priest, and cut off his ear.
Put your sword in its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Or do you think that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he will provide me with more than 12 legions of angels? How then could the scriptures be fulfilled, that it must happen thus?
In that hour, Jesus said to the multitudes,
Have you come out, as against a robber, with swords and clubs to take me? I sat daily with you, teaching in the temple, and you did not seize me. But all this was done, that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled.
Then all the disciples forsook him and fled.
I'm here outside of the Palm Beach Sports Club here in St. Lucie West, and nobody's here. Not a car. Mine's the only one sitting right over there. Isn't that amazing? You know, in our reading today, we see that there's this almost loss of strength kind of come about. After that Last Supper, the disciples and Jesus go up to a garden, and Jesus tells them to pray. And Jesus goes off and he prays very intensely. And he comes back. And does he find them praying? Does he find them finding some scroll to read? Like, no, they lost their strength. And they're sleeping. And he wakes them up. He's like, come on, guys, pray. And Jesus goes off and prays more. And this happens 2 more times. They lost their strength to pray. What's interesting to me is that during and before this, you almost have some invincibility, you know? That I have so much strength that I can take whatever comes my way. But here we are, facing the loss of our strength. What's a strength that you have had that you feel like you've lost during this season? I think Peter thought he found a newfound strength. He's like, I'm going to grab this sword for the person arresting Jesus. But Jesus goes, that's no strength to have, and tells him to put it away. I know strengths that I thought I had, that I have lost. We've lost our strength. Psalm 4. Answer my prayers, O true God, the righteous, who makes me right. I was hopelessly surrounded and you rescued me. Once again, hear me and hide me in your favor. Bring victory in defeat and hope in hopelessness. How long will your sons of Adam steal my dignity, reduce my glory to shame? Why pine for the fruitless and the dream of a delusion? Understand this: the Eternal One treats as special those that are like him. The Eternal will answer my prayers and save me. Think long, think hard. When you are angry, don't let it carry you into sin. When night comes in calm, be silent. From this day forward, offer to God the right sacrifice from the heart, made right by God. Entrust yourself to the Eternal One. Crowds of disheartened people ask, who can show us what is good? Let your brilliant face shine upon us, O Eternal One, that we may know the undeniable answer. You have filled me with joy and happiness, as risen in my heart great delight and unrivaled joy, even more than when bread abounds and wine flows freely. Tonight I will sleep securely on a bed of peace, because I trust you, you alone, O Eternal. You'll keep me safe.
Those who had laid hold of Jesus led him away to Caiaphas the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance to the high priest's courtyard, and he went in and sat with the servants to see the end. Now the chief priests, the elders, and all the council sought false testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but found none. Even though many false witnesses came forward, they found none. But at last 2 false witnesses came forward.
This fellow said, I'm able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days.
And the high priest arose and said to him,
Do you answer nothing? What is it these men testify against you?
But Jesus kept silent. And the high priest answered and said to him,
I put you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God.
It is as you said. Nevertheless, I say to you, hereafter you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven.
Then the high priest tore his clothes.
He has spoken blasphemy. What further need do we have of witnesses? Look, now you have heard his blasphemy. What do you think?
He is deserving of death.
Then they spat in his face and beat him, and others struck him with the palms of their hands.
Prophesy to us, Christ. Who is the one who struck you?
I'm standing in our new building right now. And isn't it great? I mean, look at everything that's going on inside here. There's walls, all kinds of great things going on. But it makes me think about what Jesus said in our reading. He said, I will tear down the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. What? You're going to tear it down? Imagine the loss of opportunity that would be if that actually happened. If the temple was destroyed, imagine all the work that people are doing, all those religious leaders and all. They wouldn't be able to do any of that. Imagine the people that come to worship and commune with their God. The temple would be gone and they would miss those opportunities. Imagine the people that come and sacrifice there at the temple to receive forgiveness. Those opportunities would be gone. We've faced a loss of opportunity this year.
To set me
Psalm 69. Reach down for me, true God, deliver me. The waters have risen to my neck. I'm going down. My feet are swallowed in this murky bog. I'm sinking and there is no sturdy ground. I am in the deep, and the floods are crashing in. I'm weary and howling, my throat is scratched dry. I still look for my God, even though my eyes fail. My enemies despise me without any cause. They outnumber the hairs on my very head. They torment me with all their power, and they have absolutely no reason to hate me. Yet now I just sit here and I pay for my crimes that I never committed. Oh, true God, my foolish ways are plain before you. My mistakes, no, nothing can be hidden from you. Don't let your hopeful followers face disgrace because of me. O Lord, my eternal one, commander of all your heavenly armies, do not let your seekers be ashamed on account of me. O true God of Israel, I have been mocked when I stood up for you, and I cower shamefaced. You know my brothers and my sisters, they now reject me. They act as if I never existed. I am like a stranger in my own family. But Eternal One, I just pray the time is right, that you would hear me. And true God, because of your enduring love, that you would answer in your faithfulness. Lord, save me. Pluck me from this miry bog. Do not pull me down. Pull me from this rising water. Take me away from my enemies to dry land. Don't let the flood take me under, or let me, your servant, be swallowed into the deep. Or let the yawning pit seal me in. O Eternal One, answer me. Answer me, for your enduring love is good comfort. In your great mercy, turn to me.
Now Peter sat outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him.
You also were with Jesus of Galilee.
But he denied it before them all.
I do not know what you are saying.
And when he had gone out to the gateway, another girl saw him and said to those who were there,
This fellow also was with Jesus of Nazareth.
But again he denied with an oath.
I do not know the man.
And a little later those who stood by came up and said to Peter,
Surely you also are one of them, for your speech betrays you.
Then he began to curse and swear.
I do not know the man.
And Peter remembered the word of Jesus.
Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times.
So he went out and wept bitterly.
I'm outside of City Hall right now. And this kind of reminds me of Peter denying Jesus around that fire pit. Because that's an odd thing. Peter, the rock on which Christ was going to build his church, why is he denying Jesus? Did he lose some confidence? And what shook his confidence? Was it the arrest in the garden? Was it Jesus talking about how he was going to have to die and rise again? Something shook the rock. And there they are, at a loss of confidence. And it makes me look at my own loss of confidence. You know, I used to be able to shake anyone's hand, but the next time I greet someone and they reach their hand out, well, I'd be hesitant. I used to love to going to concerts and parties and groups of huge people, big sporting events. All that stuff was very fun. And when I'm elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder with other people, am I going to be hesitant and go, am I going to give the virus to somebody? Is someone going to give it to me? Is there something new out there? I think we've lost a bit of confidence, just like Peter.
Let all
Psalm 17. Listen, O Eternal One, to my cry for justice. These words of mine are true. Turn your ear toward me. Announce that I am free of all the charges against me. Only you can see into my heart and know that to be true. Treat me with fairness. Look at me with justice. You have searched me, my heart and my soul, awakened me from dreaming and tested me. You found nothing against me. I have resolved not to sin in what I say. The path of violent men I have followed, but I will not travel it. Violence is not my way. Your ways and your voice now guide my journey. I will press on, moving steadily forward along your path. I will not look back. I will not stumble. I am crying aloud to you, O true God, for I long to know your answer. Hear me, O God. Hear my plea. Hear my prayer for help. Put your marvelous love on display for all to see. Liberator of those who long for shelter beside you, send them to safety away from their enemies, ever welcome by grace. Rise up and comfort them, O Eternal One. Make them pay. By your sword, set me free from my wicked enemies. May your rescue find me here. By your hand, save me from my enemies, Eternal One. Save me from men whose hopes are rooted in this world. But as for those you cherish, may they feast on all you have set aside for them. May their children never be in need. May they have enough so their children will inherit their wealth. But as for me, my hope is to see your face. When I am vindicated, I will look upon the holy face of God. When I awake, the longing of my soul will be satisfied in the glow of your presence.
When morning came, all the chief priests and elders of the people plotted against Jesus to put him to death. And when they had bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate, the governor. Then Judas, his betrayer, seeing that he had been condemned, was remorseful, and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders.
I have sinned by betraying innocent blood.
What is that to us? You see to it.
Then he threw down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed, and went and hanged himself. But the chief priests took the silver pieces.
It is not lawful to put them into the treasury, because they are the price of blood.
And they consulted together and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. Therefore that field has been called the field of blood to this day. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet.
And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the value of him who was priced, whom they of the children of Israel priced, and gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord directed me.
Now Jesus stood before the governor.
Are you the king of the Jews?
It is as you say.
And while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he answered nothing.
Do you not hear how many things they testify against you?
But he answered him not one word, so that the governor marveled greatly. Now at the feast the governor was accustomed to releasing to the multitude one prisoner whom they wished. And at that time they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. Therefore, when they had gathered together, Pilate said to them,
Whom do you want me to release to you? Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?
For he knew that they had handed him over because of envy. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent to him,
Have nothing to do with that just man, for I have suffered many things today in a dream because of him.
But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitudes that they should ask for Barabbas and destroy Jesus.
Which of the two do you want me to release to you?
Barabbas!
What then shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ?
Let him be crucified!
Why? What evil has he done?
But they cried out all the more.
Let him be crucified!
When Pilate saw that he could not prevail at all, but rather that a tumult was rising, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude.
I am innocent of the blood of this just person. You see to it.
And all the people answered,
His blood be on us,
Blood be on us
and our children.
on our children!
Then he released Barabbas to them. And when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified.
I'm at the event center here, and our reading really reminds me of this place. Because when Jesus is before Pilate, Pilate doesn't know what to do with Jesus, so he goes out into the courtyards around there and he asks the people, "What do you want? Do you want me to release this Jesus, or do you want me to release Barabbas?" And they cry out, "Give us Barabbas." They cry out at the top of their lungs, "We want Barabbas." Much like the crowds and event centers all over this place choose who they cheer for. Whether they are cheering for their football team or a concert saying, "Play it again." Encore, encore. Or the way we choose our entertainment day after day. When we cry aloud, they cried out for Barabbas. And when I read this gospel anew, under this threat that we are in now, it made me feel a loss of choice. That we've chosen for so long, and now we can't come to this place and yell. Isaiah 53. Out of emptiness he came, like a tender shoot from a rock-hard ground. He didn't look like anything or anyone of consequence. He had no physical beauty to attract our attention. So he was despised and forsaken by men. This man of suffering, grief's patient friend. As if he was a person to avoid, we looked the other way. He was despised, forsaken, and we took no notice of him. Yet it was our suffering he carried, our pain and our distress, our sick to the soulness. We just figured that God had rejected him, that God was the reason he hurt so badly. But he was hurt because of all of us. He suffered so. Our wrongdoing wounded and crushed him. He endured the breaking that made us whole. The injuries he suffered because of our healing. We all have wandered off like shepherdless sheep, scattered by our aimless striving and endless pursuits. The Eternal One laid on him, this silent sufferer, the sins of us all. And in the face of such oppression and suffering, silence. Not a word of protest, not a finger raised to stop it. Like a sheep to a shearing, like a lamb to be slaughtered, he went, oh so quietly, oh so willingly. Oppressed and condemned, he was taken away from this generation who was there to complain, who was there to cry foul. He was, after all, cut off from the land of the living, smacked and struck, not on his account, because of how my people, oh my people, disregarded the lines between right and wrong. They snuffed out his life. And when he was dead, he was bruised and with the disgrace and borrowed space among the rich, even though he did no wrong by word or deed. Yet the Eternal One planned to crush him all along, to bring him to grief, this innocent servant of God. When he puts his life in sin's dark place, in the pit of wrongdoing, this servant of God will see his children and have his days prolonged. For his servant's hand, the Eternal's deepest desire will come to pass and flourish. As a result of trials and troubles that wreck his soul, God's servant will see light and be content, because he knows, he really understands what it's all about. And God says, my just servant will justly count others by taking on their punishment and bearing it all away. Because he exposed his very self, laid bare his soul to vicious grasping of death, and was counted among the worst. I will count him among the best. I will allot this one, my servant, a share in all that is of any value, because he took on himself the sin of many and acted on behalf of those who broke my law.
Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole garrison around him. And they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. When they had twisted a crown of thorns, they put it on his head, and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him and mocked him.
Hail, King of the Jews!
Then they spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they took the robe off him, put his own clothes on him, and led him away to be crucified. Now as they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. Him they compelled to bear his cross. And when they had come to a place called Golgotha, that is to say, place of a skull, they gave him sour wine mingled with gall to drink. But when he had tasted it, he would not drink. Then they crucified him and divided his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet.
They divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots.
Sitting down, they kept watch over him there, and they put up over his head the accusation written against him, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and another on the left. And those who passed by blasphemed him, wagging their heads.
You who destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself.
If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross.
Likewise the chief priests also, mocking with the scribes and elders, said,
He saved others. Himself he cannot save.
If he is the King of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him.
He trusted in God. Let him deliver him now if he will have him. For he said, I am the Son of God.
Even the robbers who were crucified with him reviled him with the same thing.
In our reading, we see the final minutes and hours of Jesus' life. We see him on the cross that Rome built. We see him in between 2 thieves, and we see him with mocking signs that says, King of the Jews above him. But what I thought about was those people that were followers of him that were still near the bottom of the cross. And as they looked up at him and they thought to themselves about how he had brought them all together, how he had brought them happiness and joy, how he had brought them hope that he was the Messiah, that he was going to finally put things to right. And there he is on a cross. And they face the loss of the body. And I think us today, we can't join together. We can't sing songs of admiration towards God. We can't hug and we can't laugh together, at least not in person. When I was being taught in seminary, I was taught a certain type of ministry called incarnational ministry. And that means ministry of the body, ministry of presence, ministry of being there. And we can't have that right now. And it just makes me think of those people looking at Jesus on the cross. And I think just in a tiny glimmer of my soul understands what that feels like now. To feel the loss of the body. Psalm 22. My God, why have you turned your back on me? Your ears are deaf to my groans. Oh my God, I cry all day and you are silent. My tears in the night bring no relief. Still you are holy. You make your home in the praises of Israel. Our mothers and fathers, they trusted you. They trusted and you rescued them. You cried out. They cried out to you for help and were spared. They trusted in you and were vindicated. But I am a worm, not a human being, a disgrace and an object of scorn. Everyone who sees me, they laugh at me. They cast lots for the very clothes on my back. But you, O Eternal, stay close. O you, help me, hurry to my side. Save my life from violence, my sweet life from teeth of the wild dog. Rescue me from the mouth of the lion, from the horns of the wild oxen. You respond to my plea. The Eternal One owns the world, and he exercises his gentle rule over all the nations.
It is finished. The final necessary duty of crucifixion is now complete. I myself thrust my spear into his side, and he truly is dead. Who is dead, you ask? Just read the sign. Jesus of Nazareth. That much is true. King of the Jews? No, that is far from all the truth. This truly is the Son of God. Yes, this, nailed to a cross. And it was I who nailed him there. The last 12 hours have been the most trying of my life, but they may prove to be the most important of my life. For in these last 12 hours I have found a new king, a new Lord, a new God in him. Please understand that I am a man under authority, with soldiers under me as well, a Roman centurion, an officer in Caesar's chain of command, with 100 men under my direct authority, currently assigned to duty here in Jerusalem. Jerusalem? To tell you the truth, this is not the assignment I had wanted. I am a professional soldier. When I was a boy, I used to watch with burning excitement as the heroes of war came marching back into Rome. Crowds would line the roads, cheering as they went by, carrying the Roman standards, drums beating cadence, and each man, spear glistening, helmet shining, uniform and armor dazzling. That is what I wanted, that kind of glory and authority, and I found it could be mine All I needed to do was pledge my life and my allegiance to Caesar. Caesar who spoke as God himself. Divine Caesar, he is called with reverence. The one the gods have sent. As to a God, I pledged myself to him. I fought for him, as if I had a divine order from God himself. Yes, I was decorated. I was honored. I was a hero. My medals tell the story of the countless men whom I killed in battle. And then, the battle stopped. Peace, the great Roman peace, as it is being called, descended upon the world, thanks to my efforts, I might add. No more lands to conquer, no more great enemies to be subdued, and so we were broken into smaller groups. Now it was more of an occupational army, a police force, assigned to keep the peace which we had brought upon the world. Why was I chosen for Jerusalem? Because this was one of the few remaining hotspots in the empire. There is, a radical group. Some call them the Maccabees, others call them the Zealots. Regardless of their name, they are a constant threat. Because of my reputation, callous, hard, merciless to all those who oppose Rome, I was sent here to Judea. But I would keep the peace here from my divine Lord, Caesar, my king. How do you keep that peace, you might ask? Not by soft negotiation, not here at any rate, but by sword and by spear, and hammer and nail as well. Crucifixion, immediate response, immediate death for anyone who defies Roman law. So in the service of divine Caesar, whom I serve with nearly worshipful allegiance, crucifixion when it is called for. That is what I do. I am a man under authority. I have been here now more than 2 years. During this time I have come face to face with a new religion. New to me at any rate, although it is more ancient than our own. This Jewish religion. It seems that it's because of their religion they oppose us most. Their God, even our money offends their God, because it has Caesar's image on it. And their laws, endless laws. They even have their own religious governing body, the priesthood with their Sanhedrin. We found out quickly that we dare not permit them to carry out a death sentence on their own authority, because they would condemn people for strange and unbelievable things, like adultery, working when you're supposed to be resting, using their God's name inappropriately. That's not Roman justice. Then there was a man, a strange man, a preaching man. Some called him a prophet. His followers called him master or rabbi. Some said he was the Son of God, a Messiah sent by God. That caught my ear because that is what Caesar claimed to be. The religious authorities call him a nuisance. No worse, a religious rebel. He seemed to be upsetting their traditions and their roles. I heard him speak. Of course I did. It was my job to be aware of groups and individuals, of gangs and movements, military intelligence. This was no revolutionary. His motivation and driving message was love and peace from God. And the way he reached out to people, he lived that message. You can imagine my surprise, therefore. 6 a.m. Word came to me personally. Report to Pilate's court, now! Bring a detail with you! Had a revolution broken out? The crowd was large and roaring. I heard it as we came. I commanded the men, draw swords! And then to my surprise, it was no revolution. It was just a trial. But wait, him? Jesus? On trial and before Pilate? Why? I was there on duty for the proceedings. All of them. Ready to be involved if needed, in crowd control. Crucify, they cried. Crucify him. Pilate said, I find no fault. We have a law, they cried the louder. By our law he must die. He claimed he is God. So, Pilate was determined to remain in charge, to exercise authority. Scourge him, he said to me. I must admit I found myself wanting to object. Sir, he is innocent. But no, I am a Roman soldier, a man under authority. Scourge him, Pilate had ordered. When we brought him back, I am a calloused man, but somehow this got to me. Behold your king. We have no king but Caesar, they roared back. And unless you have him crucified, you are not Caesar's friend. I knew what that meant. I have lived through the problems Pilate has had with these people, and with Rome as well as a result. Their threat was one the governor could not ignore. In spite of all our swords and spears and legions to command, they still had the upper hand. So crucify him, Pilate said to me. And to the crowd, yes then, let him be crucified. I crucified him, along with the other two. I personally nailed him to the cross, but not willingly nor painlessly. I have killed many men in the heat of battle, raging enemies, ferocious foes. I've crucified many as well, screaming outcasts, calloused criminals. But to crucify him, an innocent man, a righteous man, and worse, a willing man. No resistance, total calm. He looked up at me as I was about to drive the nail, with an expression that seemed to say, "You must nail me here. It is necessary." For 6 hours we stood and waited, my men and I. We waited and saw and heard. Father, forgive them. Me. He is talking about forgiveness for me. He spoke of the others too. I heard it all. His mother, the thief, and then the darkness. Thick, ominous, and black. Oh, the darkness. My God, his cry. Despair like I have never heard before. My God, why have you forsaken me? What happened in the next moments, I didn't know. Yes, I do know. The heavens broke loose, lightning and thunder. The earth broke open as it shook and trembled in fear, and I shook with it. Nothing like this has ever happened to me. He died, and it seemed that all of creation responded with its tears. And I cried too. I cried out what I had come to believe. Truly, this was the Son of God. I had nailed the Son of God to the cross. He died there by my hand. Is this a confession of guilt? Yes, but of so much more. Father, forgive them, he prayed. And he promised hope and help and paradise. Somehow I have come to know it was necessary that he die. This Son of God. He too was under orders from a high authority, higher than divine Caesar by far, an authority truly divine. And I was given the honor to be a part, a small but vital part, in that most necessary task. Father, into your hands I place my life, he prayed. I too, Father, I too, for I know what it is to be responsible.
As we've gone all around our town today, to different locations and restaurants and buildings and concert halls, and faced the loss of choice and opportunity and getting together, I think on Good Friday we follow Jesus all the way to the point where he dies on the cross. And I think that's the point of Good Friday, that we lose our way. That as we follow him all the way to and through the cross, we lose our way. But when we follow him there, we end up discovering ourselves in his way. And I think that's a Good Friday.
Now from the 6th hour until the 9th hour, there was darkness over all the land. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice,
Elo, lama sabachthani.
That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? Some of those who stood there when they heard that said,
This man is calling for Elijah.
Immediately one of them ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a reed, and offered it to him to drink.
Let him alone. Let us see if Elijah will come to save him.
And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice, and yielded up his spirit. Then, behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And the earth quaked, and the rocks were split, and the graves were opened. And many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the graves after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. So when the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and the things that had happened, they feared greatly.
Truly, this was the Son of God.
And many women who followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him, were there, looking on from afar, among whom were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joses, and the mother of Zebedee's sons. Now when evening had come, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who himself had also become a disciple of Jesus. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate commanded the body to be given to him. When Joseph had taken the body, he wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his new tomb, which he had hewn out of the rock. And he rolled a large stone against the door of the tomb and departed. And Mary Magdalene was there, and the other Mary, sitting opposite the tomb. On the next day, which followed the day of preparation, the chief priests and Pharisees gathered together to Pilate.
Sir, we remember while he was still alive how that deceiver said, "After 3 days I will rise." Therefore, command that the tomb be made secure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away and say to the people, "He has risen from the dead." So the last deception will be worse than the first.
You have a guard. Go your way. Make it as secure as you know how.
So they went and made the tomb secure, sealing the stone and setting the guard.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from